Hi, I'm James George, and welcome to the best places to live and visit in the USA. I'm really excited because we are going to one of my favorite places in the world, the home of Disney, Orlando, Florida, and we've got an amazing real estate agent out there. Lala, hello.
Hello, James. How are you?
I am really good, thank you. So I wanted to get you on to talk about the amazing place that you live. Everyone obviously knows about Orlando. A lot of people have visited it, but today we're going to talk about that. What's it like to visit, but more importantly, what's it like to live there? First of all, I want to hear more about yourself. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Lala, Eleonora, full name. I am originally from Europe, Estonia to be exact. I've been in the States for 17 years, so might as well be, Americanized.
You sound pretty American to me. Yeah.
Yes, I moved here when I was in my teens, adapted fairly fast, so here I am. I've been in Orlando for about 3 years, just a little over 3 years. I come from California, but now I'm here. The Disney kept me around here, but mostly the beaches and the springs and everything else that Orlando and the surrounding areas have to offer. I love Disney, but I think people who visit Orlando love it a lot more than I do.
Okay. Well, I suppose one of the things that I want to ask you straight away is, so many people are leaving California for places like Florida. So why did you move, and why do you think most people are moving?
Personally, my reasons were, so I was living in Los Angeles and I did TV production, and I was in my late 20s and I felt like I was working too many hours and kind of like a little squirrel in never-ending wheel or hamster. Life in LA is a lot faster than it is here in Florida. And so I just constantly felt like I was trying to catch up with life and not really enjoying my 20s. Actually, I was here on a road trip. I road tripped from California to Florida, and my initial plan was to road trip back and come back to life in LA and continue doing what I was doing. But while on my road trip, I knew I was going to stay in Orlando for about a month because I have some family here, and it was the great time. I was January to February, like last 2 weeks of January, February, there I was going to be here. And Florida weather is, you can't go wrong. Like, I was going to the beach in January, and I mean, we're pretty good there with Southern California and beaches in January, but this was much warmer and the ocean was actually like swimmable.
Yes, so, that's one thing about California is
yes,
for most people it's far too cold. Yeah,
but I was passing by, and then when I got to Florida, I think the biggest thing was the cost of living here. Living in West Hollywood was very different than living in Orlando. Like what people pay here for rent and mortgage and whatever is a lot less than what people pay in California. And there was nothing really holding me in California. Like, I was a freelancer, and like I mentioned, I was working too many hours. So I wanted to be out of film industry, but I just didn't know what to do. I didn't really have like a plan of what I was going to do next. Funny enough, I came here, and because of the shows that I've worked in LA, I actually got recruited within a month of being here. It wasn't even my intention to stay, but I had changed my location on LinkedIn, and I had Universal reach out to me within the first 3 weeks. And they recruited me for a 6-month contract. And so I was like, well, why not? I don't have anything back in LA. I was subleasing my apartment. And so I just kind of like stayed here and did that for 6 months. Then I got recruited by a different film company for another 6 months. In that time, I was getting licensed because, again, my plan was to get out, and I was like, okay, why not real estate? And so I got my license, and then after my contract was up with the second production company, I had just kind of took my leap of faith and started real estate.
But it was obviously because you loved it there that you didn't just get on a plane back. And why do you think so many people choose Florida over California? Do you think it's one of the big reasons is the cost of living? There is a massive difference.
I do. I mean, even taking something as simple as gas prices. Our gas prices are at least $1 cheaper here. And our salary, while minimum wage is a lot less than what California has, our salary, like field to field, like if you're an engineer, your salary still somewhat compares to salary in California. So obviously I wasn't coming from like an engineer field, but my production in my, like what I was making in LA was fairly similar to what I was making here. But cost of living was almost like half of, like double in LA versus here. So I felt like I can actually enjoy life a lot more. And yes, LA has a lot more restaurants and a lot more to do. But after living in LA for 6 years, it felt really nice to just chill and not have to like chase life.
Yeah.
That's what ultimately kept me here.
Okay, we'll talk about what it's like to go back to what it's like to visit, because everyone knows, I'm going to share my screen now, and everybody knows that probably I'm going to go to probably the most well-known, we've got Disney. So if someone doesn't know what Disney is, then they probably shouldn't even be on YouTube watching shows. There's something wrong with them. So obviously Disney is the most incredible place. We've got a Disney here, but my understanding of it is nowhere near as big as the one that you've got. Tell us a little bit more about all the different parks, and probably maybe something about Disney that people don't know about.
Disney World is huge. It's like 10 of the Disneylands that California has. We have 4 different parks, and all of them are super huge. My favorite will be the Animal Kingdom. I love animals. Growing up in Europe, I don't know if that was your kind of experience. I wasn't a Disney person growing up.
Well, I had a Disney Princess Company, so for me it was a bit different.
Okay. To me, growing up in Estonia, I watched Tom and Jerry was about the only cartoon I watched, and I don't even think that's Disney, and it's not. But that was my childhood, or Tom and Jerry and go play outside. Yeah. So I think that I missed a lot of like the growing up with Disney. So I probably would be a bad person to interview in regards to what can you tell me about Disney that people don't know? Yeah. Because every time I go to Disney, I'm like, wow, I didn't know this, but most like an ordinary person knows about it. I do know we have 4 parks. They're all extremely big. You can literally spend a day in each park and probably not see everything. I gravitate towards
actually in Orlando, because that's one of the things about Disney is everyone thinks it's in LA, and it's not. It's actually in Orange County. So when you fly into Orlando, can you stay somewhere relatively close to the airport, and then all the different parks, are they quite close and easy to get to?
Yeah, so you're still fairly close. And funny you mentioned Orange County. We're actually also in Orange County, and our Disney, just like your Disney, is also in Orange County.
Oh, that is weird. Yeah.
But yeah, so Disney is about 25-30 minutes away from Orlando International Airport. So MCO to Disney is about 30 minutes. Yeah. So you're not far from the airport, but it is like its own city. it's so big that it's just like as big as the whole Anaheim.
Yeah.
And probably fairly close to, like, if you flew into Santa Ana.
Yeah.
So if you flew into Santa Ana, it probably is about the same distance to Disney that it is for us.
So Disney's obviously the main attraction, but one of the things I really want to go over today is all the different other stuff that people don't know about. Because a lot of time people come in for 5 days and they spend 5 days at Disney and Universal Studios and doing all of the theme park stuff. But you sent me a great link about Freshwater Springs, and they just look stunning.
Yes. One of my favorite things to do in Orlando or around Orlando, you're probably looking at about a 30-minute drive to your maybe 20-minute drive to your closest springs, which will be Belyaeva Springs, which is probably coming up somewhere around here where you're scrolling. So every spring is different, and they all have a lot of different things to offer. Belyaeva is really great for like a day trip, and you can go kayaking, tubing, just swimming. I don't even know. There's so much to do. They have a little island there where you can go and eat and drink and barbecue, and there's just a lot to do. So typically a spring stays at 72 degrees, all of them across the board, any time of the year. So it's great for summer when it's really hot. But in the winter, the water gets a little bit colder out in the ocean, so the manatees migrate to the springs. It's an amazing experience. You come in and there's like hundreds of them. I mean, literally like 400 or 500 of them, just all cuddled up, and they're so cute. So that's another attraction. Of course, you have your gators.
Well, that's my, I mean, you're going to talk about Gatorland in a minute, but my first thing is I'm seeing water, and my understanding is water often means alligators. So in these springs, do you get alligators?
Absolutely.
So yeah, so you take your family down to a beautiful freshwater spring, and there is alligators watching you.
They're probably not watching you. I mean, right, okay. I can't comment. I don't want to be held liable for saying they're not watching you, and then one day they're going to be watching someone. Alligators like darker water, so they like to hide.
And these are clear. Yeah, that makes sense.
Correct. So I'm not saying that there are no alligators at these springs. There are there, but they usually are further out. They hide away. They normally don't want to mess with you just as much as you don't want to mess with them. But of course, we all know of unfortunate events. So the people, like the park rangers and the spring people, they usually will tell you like, hey, there's an alligator there.
I see. It is very much a family-friendly area, and just yes. Like, I don't know, when there's great white sharks in the ocean here, they're putting signs right. up, they spot them, so you kind of exactly. Know. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And again, most of these springs will be clear water. Obviously, if there was an alligator, you would see it. Yeah. But most of them will hide away, like in somewhere in the darker water, because they like to hunt for their prey, and they don't like people or their prey to see them.
And what about Gatorland? Is that just full of alligators doing all sorts of shows and all sorts? Like, what is
it? So I have this weird fascination with alligators. My Instagram literally has a little channel highlight thing that is called Gator Patrol. I like to go hiking, and when I go hiking, I'm always like Gator Patrol, and I will see a gator 90% of the time when I go hiking. And again, they usually are far away, but you never know. But I think it's because I grew up in a cold country. I'm just like, what? You have alligators like walking around? Yeah. So I'm just like very fascinated by it.
Yeah, we're fascinated by coyotes and bobcats and all sorts here. Because as you say, coming from another country when the scariest yes. thing is fox, we're like, pretty cool. So yeah, I can imagine it's a major change coming from where you've lived and then LA and then going to Alligatorland.
Yeah, and so Gatorland, I've been to Gatorland a few times. I've actually even been inside of an alligator cage with another person who was like monitoring it. But Gatorland has a lot of different, it's not just gators, they have other animals. They have zip lining, which is you zip line over the alligators. So if you
so you feel even more scared. Yeah.
Yes, but they do have different shows. The people will put their, hands in their jaws and whatever. Like the trainers, not regular people. They have this little cart adventure off-roading. So they do have, it's like a whole day of entertainment outside of like Disney or Universal. And it's probably like $20-$30 for a person. So it's a lot more affordable than a day at Disney.
That sounds awesome. And what other places have you got here? I look in, well, that looks like a pretty cool thing to go to.
This one is actually one of my favorite springs. It is a little bit away from Orlando. I believe it's like an hour-ish, maybe hour and 10-minute drive. And it's called the Devil's Den. What you see, that little spring is about that size, but you can go scuba diving and snorkeling there. You can actually get certified scuba there because it goes deep under, and I don't know where it goes because I only snorkeled in this little circle, but it is kind of like insta perfect location for sure.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about in regards to actually visiting Orlando?
Besides, the springs and Disney, Universal, and all the parks that we do have our basketball team, the Magic, and times are different right now with COVID and all, but we as a state stayed pretty open, as most people know, and we actually have our games back on. So I know that a lot of people are taking advantage of that. Our events are back on. I do know that we're enforcing like social distancing, mask wearing, and all that. We're still following the guidelines, but we are opening up, and events are starting back up. So I do know that there's a lot of people hosting their events back in Florida, where I know that most of the country is still on quarantine and shutdowns and things like that. So right now we are seeing a lot of tourism, or the tourism is picking back up like a lot.
Yeah, because a lot of people like in California that are on lockdown are going to other states that there is not as strict, so that they can actually go out and enjoy things. I know that's happening a lot. In regards to actually living there, so what are your favorite restaurants, for example? If people are coming to visit or they live there and they maybe don't know about the restaurants, what are your favorite restaurants?
If people live here and they don't know about these places, they need to get out more. But for those that are coming to visit, obviously we have so many restaurants because of how heavily touristy we are. There's probably every chain restaurant within one block. It's called the Restaurant Row. It's located in Dr. Phillips, which is fairly close to Disney. But I'm pretty sure every person that comes here, International Drive and Restaurant Row, are located literally like this, like an L shape, and they go hand in hand. They're like 2 miles away from each other. And within those 2 streets, you probably have like 500 restaurants. Like,
wow,
every possible restaurant you can think of.
Now, the problem with most restaurants is if there's that much choice, which ones do you go to though?
Correct, right. And a lot of those restaurants will be chains. I don't want to say I don't like chain restaurants. I love restaurants. But I do like a little more of like when you come in and it's something fancy and like a different, like artistic plate or something like that. You know, kind of like Instagram famous whatever places. So a couple of my favorites are a sushi place called Kabuki. The chef is actually the first chef to win a James Beard Award in Orlando. So that's really, really cool. He has 2 restaurants, same place, so Kabuki and Kabuki. One is located on Restaurant Row and the other one is just outside of downtown. So people who are staying in Disney or close to Disney, they're 15 minutes away from Restaurant Row. That's definitely a place to check out. Reservations recommended, especially during the weekends. He does get busy. We also have another restaurant that's called Cadence. That's going to be more of a chef selection type of dinner place. So you have a 2-course meal. It's a very, very intimate restaurant. You only have about 12 spots there. Not recommended, but you need to have reservations or you're most likely not getting in. One of my favorite restaurants to go if I want either seafood or maybe steak is Eddie V's. And I'm sure you have an Eddie V's.
We have an Eddie V's in La Jolla, and I've been to one in Austin, and I love Eddie V's. Yep.
It's just like the vibe. You come in and you're just like, oh, I belong here.
And it's good food as well. It's pretty expensive, but I highly recommend if anyone has an Eddie V's near them to go to it. I actually have a $75 voucher that we still haven't used because it's been closed from as a Christmas present.
No. We haven't opened. Come on over.
Exactly. I think that the biggest thing that I wanted to know about this was who lives in Orlando, because my idea is it's going to be a lot of second homes, a lot of people spending a short amount of time there. So are there specific neighborhoods where there's actually families living full time? What are the schools like? You know, what's day-to-day living like? It's just a bunch of old people.
And I think that's a lot of people's assumptions. Like when I told people in California I'm moving to Florida, they're like, you're retiring? Like, no, there's more to Florida than retirement. While yes, I know that a lot of people do retire here because you don't have to pay state taxes, Orlando is not actually a place known for retirement. People don't really like to retire in the middle of the state. People prefer to be retired on the beach. While Orlando is located literally in the middle of the state, you are close to the west side beaches and the east side beaches. You're about an hour and a half away from Cocoa Beach, New Smyrna Beach, which is probably the most 2 popular beaches on the East Coast in proximity to Orlando. West Coast, you have St. Pete, Clearwater, which are wildly known for a lot of people traveling. While in Orlando, I would say we have a good mixture of people. For downtown Orlando, I would say we have mostly young adults. So we do have, with COVID, again, And even prior to COVID, probably within the last 3 years, I think we started getting a lot of tech people moving into Orlando, perhaps because there are no state taxes and a lot of people relocating their companies to Orlando. So with that, we had a lot of new tech people moving in. So that's usually like younger adults, 30s, 40s. On the outskirts of downtown Orlando, we have Winter Garden, which is one of the most popular places, I think, especially people moving from California, which I hear a lot right now, is moving to Winter Garden. It's fairly close to Disney, but far away from all the touristy, chaos. Great schools, fantastic neighborhoods. It's growing really, really fast. It's been growing for the past 10 years, like on a steady incline. But in the last, I'd say 4 or 5 years, it's grown like dramatically. So it's great for younger families. There's a lot of parks and trails and close to springs. There are some hikes. We're not talking about California elevation, but we're talking about, 200 feet. So that's what we have.
Yeah.
So that's a great place for families to move to.
And one of the things that we're going to talk about now is what you can get for your money, because obviously in California you don't get much for $300,000. But what's really interesting about places like Florida is you can get quite a lot for your money. So we've got this video here showing off the community, and it's just over $355,000. Looks like you can get a big house for that.
Definitely. If you go just 15, 20 minutes outside of Orlando, your 355 goes a long way.
Yeah. Here's what you can get, and it's insane.
And we're talking about brand new construction and a clubhouse and pool, and you're probably on some kind of a lake or a pond or some kind of water view. So, this is huge.
Is this in the middle of nowhere? Has this got really bad schools? Like, how can you get a house for $300,000 that's this nice? What's the negative?
This is located in Claremont. You're not necessarily in the middle of nowhere, but you are about 30 minutes outside of Orlando. So the Winter Garden area that I just mentioned is actually a neighbor. So Winter Garden is here, Claremont is just above it. So just a little north of it. I shouldn't say above it, or depends on where you go. You have good schools. If you don't mind the 30-minute commute, if you work downtown Orlando or whatnot, which a lot of people do, we don't have California traffic. We have.
You can just be 30 minutes outside of where you work and get an incredible home like this for this price. I can see why so many people are looking to move, because that's pretty insane. If you can afford it, obviously California is a great place to live. The weather's perfect 24/7. We don't get, mosquitoes and all of that. But if you're struggling financially and you've got the money to move here, wow, can you get a nice house?
Yes, definitely. You can't go wrong. And again, 30 minutes, if you are used to living in like LA or San Diego, your 30 minutes is probably like 3 miles. Where here, 30 minutes is actually 30 miles. So you can have this and probably have the same commute time. You're going a little further in the distance, but commute time is probably the same. And you're living in a 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom house that's almost 3,000 square feet.
And you get really big backyard as well. That's one of the things that we don't get here is we don't get yard space. Anywhere near the water, you've got no backyard. So it looks like you get a decent lot for that as well.
Yeah, a lot of new construction is starting to make the yard space a little smaller because they are trying to get the most for it. But we're still seeing a fair amount of, yard. You can put a pool in there and still have a little bit of yard left over.
What about if you wanted to be in downtown Orlando? Is $300K getting you like a 2-bed condo or something? What will $300K get you in downtown?
We don't have too many high-rise buildings. You won't find anything brand new for $300 in downtown Orlando, but you can find a resale at maybe one of the high-rises we have. I don't know, 5, 10, not more than that. Depends on what you consider a high-rise. But you can get like a 2-1 maybe.
Yep. Okay, so you can get, but more than likely, if you want a family home, you're going to go out into the sticks a little bit more.
Yeah, you probably are not going to be downtown Orlando. If you have a family, you can be probably on the outskirts of right downtown, which is Eola Heights, Thornton Park. But single family homes over there will be a little more expensive than $300. You're probably looking at $450 and up.
Okay.
For a decent home.
And then we're going to show one around, what you get for $1 million. So this is just over $1 million. So let's see what you can get for $1 million.
So this is actually in Winter Garden, which I mentioned is a great area that's booming really, really fast. The prices are a little more expensive here than they are in Claremont because you are a little bit closer. It is a little more developed. You have a lot more restaurant choices and, entertainment and such. The communities are luxurious. So this is what you'll get for $1 million.
Yeah, it does look really nice, and the area looks fantastic. How far away is this from, if people actually live in downtown, how far away would this Winter Gardens be then?
About 20 minutes if you take the Turnpike. You won't take Turnpike if you take the 408.
Yeah.
If you take the highway.
If someone is moving from a very family-oriented area, somewhere like LA or San Diego or something like that, you would recommend Winter Gardens would be a place that they should really check out if they're thinking of moving to Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably want to know what they're looking for, because if they want to have more life, then I would not recommend Winter Garden, but then I would probably recommend being closer to downtown. Winter Garden is a little more relaxed. Winter Garden is where you would go if you have a family for the most part. I'm sure there are plenty of single people living in Winter Garden and enjoying their life, but for the most part, it is known for young families and things like that, where, you are a little bit outside of downtown. So life is a little bit slower.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been absolutely fantastic, and we do plan on coming out to Orlando at some point in the next year, so we'll have to meet up again. It's quite funny, we met in a hot tub in Salt Lake City, and that's how we've become friends when in Park City when we went skiing. So I'd love to come over and meet you, and my kids would love to be able to obviously come to Disneyland, and I'd love to see these Freshwater Springs as well.
Great.
And so if someone's looking at moving to your area, how are they best contacting you?
You can find me on Instagram at CFL Homegirl or at Las Bella. That's 2 A's. Or just phone number. You can text me, call me at 916-317-2453.
Perfect. I'll put all your contact information below so people can find it easily. And let's keep in touch, and hopefully it won't be too long till I can see you out in sunny Orlando.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.